You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more.
Wepa familia, what up, it's your boy Amega coming to you live and direct from the Comic Crusaders studio, baby. And today we have an absolute legend in his house, man. He is the maestro of multimedia, the king of Call of Duty cutscenes, the storyteller who has teamed up with Blade himself. But before we get into all that, I need you to understand, we're going to be deep diving intensely into his creative journey from bringing soldiers to life, baby, in modern warfare to creating psychological nightmares in his latest apocalyptic thriller graphic novel that's live right now on Kickstarter called Frost Road. And listen, this is not just any book. We got dead meat in the mix as Spider-Man himself, Yuri Lowenthal, lending his likeness. So buckle up, folks, all right? Hit that subscribe button, all right? Turn on the notifications. We're about to get live with the CEO of PCB Productions, the one, the only, the big boss himself, Keith Arem. How you doing?
Dude, thank you. That was the best introduction I think I've ever had. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love that.
Yeah, I love it when people tell me that. Yes,
I'm coming out with the WWE.
The best intros in the game. But listen, lo and behold, we do have one more person here. He was the glue that put this together. My man, I've known him for a bit. He's been moving around the biz and doing his thing. Now he's a director of special projects and outreach at PCB Productions, the one, the only, this future star in the making, Chris Yates.
Amazing, dude. Thank you, Al. I appreciate that. Wonderful.
I need my own theme music after that.
How you want to feel that? Get that pip on, right? Hey, let's go. But muchachos, thank you for coming on to talk about, this great project, Keith, your journey and all that, because you're a big boss. So I know people are definitely tuning in because they want to be part of this legendary Kickstarter that's live right now. Folks, again, we only have hours to go, 64, all right? But that's enough time for y'all to have some paper. I know tax returns are coming in and stuff, so there's no lying, fibbing as to you cannot partake. It only takes $1 even sometimes, all right? So with that, Keith, let me start with you real quick. You've directed, the voices behind Call of Duty, Titan Force, Saints Row. Bro, were you born with headphones on or what?
How did you get in our logo? I mean, we have headphones like literally in our company logo. Yeah, no, it's been music and sound and acting and all this has been part of my lifeblood for the past 3 decades. So for it to come full circle and for me to take all the things I grew up with and bring it back in, it's just an amazing time.
So what's the early origins of just your geekdom, if you will? Where are you originally from, and what was like the first thing in all of pop culture that you ever fell in love with?
Oh, wow. Well, I grew up in Arizona. I literally just got back from Arizona. We were at the Game On Expo out in Phoenix, and it was amazing to go back home to where I grew up. I did my first movie back in Phoenix. I did all my original music back in Tucson, where I started everything. And so I had started as a kid out in Arizona playing in bands. I had a synthesizer, had her family's computer, and I was touring at 14 years old during my high school years, just opening up and playing in nightclubs and concerts. And then we got onto television and the radio, and our band was called Fiction back in the days, and we blew up, and we were just doing 2 to 3 shows a week. I amassed a whole recording studio. And by the time I was 17, I was like, I'm going to go to California and get my record deal. And that's what I did. And my parents were like, oh, well, music is a passing phase, and, have a business degree or something to fall back on. And I came out here to California, to Los Angeles, and I went to school at Cal State Dominguez to get my bachelor's degree in audio engineering and music synthesis. And they had an amazing recording studio. And so every night, especially on the weekends and after school, I'd haul my synthesizers up to the studio and record in their $1 million recording studio. And then my freshman year, I got my first record deal. And my parents freaked out. They're like, this is supposed to be a phase. You're never supposed to actually be successful. We told you we're going to fall back on something.
How dare you do music, Keith? We told you no.
Right. And so they actually made me turn down the record deal because they didn't make me. They just said that they were strongly advising, because they were basically supporting me, right? They were helping me go to school and help me kind of move out here. So having parental support and having, the blessing of my family was really important. And so I turned it down, and that, for some reason in Hollywood, in the record industry, that means, oh, you're playing hard to get. So by the time I was a senior, I probably had a couple dozen record deals. And so I started right out of college. We signed with Capitol Records. Our band Biohazard became Contagion, and we started playing with bands like Nine Inch Nails and Frontline Assembly and Die Wars, all these big industrial bands. And the whole time we're touring, we're playing video games. And so here we are 3 years later.
You guys make music like that, geeking out on video games on the backstage and shit. What the hell?
Yeah. So that was it. So the whole beginning was all in audio. And so I had an engineering degree, but I was really passionate about music. But really, music is storytelling. And the whole time I'm working on my albums, they're concept albums, right? You're telling stories, you're bringing in sound effects and music and actors and all these other things to create a world, much like Pink Floyd would do back in the day with The Wall or other concept albums like that. So I was always very much of the idea that you're trying to tell a story, and whether it's just through sound or whatever the medium is, you're still a storyteller. And so between my love of that and comics and graphic novels and video games, I was able to find a career in doing that. So I was really inspired by all those things, and it just came together and became my job.
Dig it, man. And it's also showing you have a comic book geek card in there. Is there any particular comic book character writer that you are inspired by?
I always loved, growing up, I was really inspired by motion pictures. So I always loved films. I just loved going to movies and getting pulled into that. And especially horror and sci-fi was like all genre stuff. So early like horror stuff from The Shining and Alien and The Thing and movies like that were always like inspiration. And there were magazines. We always used to get magazines like Starlog and Fangoria and all these other magazines. But the one comic that we would always get was Heavy Metal. And Heavy Metal was just amazing because it was all that, but then, not even just regular comic books that were for kids. These were like mature stories, and I just loved that. And in college, I ended up picking up and being introduced to Arkham Asylum with Grant Morrison and Dave McKean. And it just like completely rocked my world, because I had loved all those other comics and other books before, but I'd never seen anything to that level. Everything painted in that dreamy, painterly style. So I think that was a big influence for me. And so by the time I started doing my own work, that was sort of the impressionistic sort of idea that I had, that every single panel needed to be painted to the level that it could be a cover. And so I think that book and Heavy Metal were the two big influences for me that really just kind of drove my love of the medium.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Heavy Metal. They just had a historic Kickstarter themselves. They're back in the game. Frank doing his thing out there. Salute to the big homie, bringing that legendary mag back. So that's awesome. But thank you for bringing that up. Now, when it comes to PCB, how did that all come about?
So when I was coming off of tour, I was touring for years, and the whole time from city to city, we're playing video games the whole time. And mainly at that time, it was like Street Fighter and early Nintendo stuff. And it really wasn't, you could tell the technology wasn't at the level of what I wanted to do in music, but I loved playing them and I loved the worlds. And a friend of mine who was at Sony at the time saw that I started getting into scoring movies and I was doing all these albums. And he introduced me to a team that was working on the first BattleTech game for the Sega Genesis. And I took it as a challenge, and I got involved, and I actually wrote all the music for it in about 2 weeks. It was like 11 days or something like that. And it ended up winning all these awards. And suddenly everyone in the music industry and everyone in the game industry, which was pretty young at the time, started saying, well, hey, the Sega Genesis, can you do music for us? And so I ended up starting to work for Virgin Interactive, and then became their audio director after the first year, and then was there all the way until Electronic Arts merged with us and took over our company. And then after working there, I was like, you know what? I'm doing my own thing. And so 26 years ago, knock on whatever kind of wood, we started PCB. And it was awesome because then I get to work for everybody. And now 700 games and productions later, Yeah, like we're going strong, and we're still, I'm working on Street Fighter. The games that I started with, I'm still getting to work on them now, and I get to direct all the esports commentators and work on these games and do the performance capture, and we're still writing music and still doing sound effects. But performance capture has really been the big thing. So working with actors and celebrities and telling these stories in games has really been our focus, and coming up with new technology and other things in our studios so we can sort of bring that to the next level of these big AAA games. And so most people know us for our AAA game work and our services and directors, but they don't know us for the original work. And so that's really where it's changed, I think, very drastically. And that's how Chris and I really came together, is take this body of work that I was developing personally and starting to get that out to the audience. And that's been the big change for us.
Excellent. Look at my man Keith segueing me perfectly, because I was about to ask about the promance. Tell us a story about I had to call the promance. How'd you and Chris meet? How that happened? And then Keith, actually, what, Keith, you've been saying a lot. Let me get here to Chris. I keep it all quiet over here. Chris, thanks for coming on. You tell us your version of the story of the promance of meeting Keith, and Keith will say yes or no if you're fibbing. All right.
Okay. Yeah. No. So basically, we met in December through a mutual friend, and basically, I went and visited the studio, as you can see that Keith's in, and we just kind of started talking and just spitballing, and it was just like, hey, like, you're Chris that used to work for Massive, like, and I used to work with Adam Lawson, and so. Who Keith did with The Exiled and Wesley. And so we just kind of started talking, and then just one thing kind of led to another. And I kind of just asked him the question, I'm like, man, you have so much stuff just waiting to be like released. Like, why haven't you reached out to Image or, done kind of those things? And as Keith has alluded to, he's been very busy. And so I was like, well, you should potentially like kickstart this. Like, you can just do it, you can do it yourself. And the one thing he said is like, well, I don't really have someone there at the time. Well, and I remember saying to him, like, I'm not putting myself up for it, but I'm putting myself up for it. Like, how do we get this happen? And so before Keith even like said, like, sure, let's do it, I just started emailing out people that I thought, who could start having those conversations. Like, how do you set up a Kickstarter? What's the best way of doing those kind of due diligences and making sure that you're, you have the right look, you have the certain, just kind of doing all the things you need to make sure you run a successful professional campaign. And then we just kind of settled on Frost, as this was one of the biggest things he had in the tank ready to go, because I mean, Keith may speak to it later, but he had it for almost 10 years at, in different iterations and formations. And so we just started kind of spitballing and be like, hey, well, if we, with shipping and tariffs, like, we just started kind of talking and thinking out loud. And so that's kind of how it came together. And now we're here, and, we're fully funded, which is the first interview we've given once we've been fully funded. So we're excited to go into stretch goals now.
Yes, talking about funny, folks. Here we go. Look at this amazing looking little project right here, Frost Road. And let me tell you, 224 backers. Salute to you guys supporting independent comics. Now with only 64 hours to go, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow geeks, my Crusaders. Come on, baby. Let's get this to 25,000. Come on. They only needed 20,000, but they're at 22.5. Beautiful. Woo! Congrats.
Thank you.
I love to see support like this. And you know what we're going to have to do, right? There is a video here. So let's check out this video, and then we're going to keep talking about this dope project and a whole lot more.
Hey, we're James and Chelsea from Dead Meat.
We're so excited to be partnering with Keith Arem and Christopher Shy on their Kickstarter for Frost Road.
Previously, these two partnered on the award-winning graphic novel Ascend and have some horror credentials that we're really excited about. Christopher has worked on Dead Space and Silent Hill, and you may know Keith from his work on the Call of Duty series.
As horror fans, it's always really exciting to see new media in this genre, and the best part is that this horror graphic novel is already done. You're not going to have to wait long to get your hands on this story. This Kickstarter is for printing and fulfillment costs and rewards for backers.
So where does Dead Meat fit in? Well, one of the stretch goals is bringing the story of Frost Road from graphic novel to audio drama form. And that audio drama will be produced in partnership with us at Dead Meat.
This will be some of our first narrative horror that we've ever created, which we know a lot of you have wanted us to do. And if this Kickstarter hits $40,000, we'll start production on this really neat
project. Let's get to 40, folks.
Yeah, we've tested some stuff already with Keith, and this is going to use audio in really specific, scary ways. His technical prowess, combined with our many hours on the couch watching horror movies, is going to result in something really fun and spooky.
This Kickstarter only runs until April 8th, so get on it if you want this audio drama to come to life. Also, if this kind of stuff interests you, Keith especially wants our viewers
the link,
to
folks.
use his Kickstarter as a gateway to finding other awesome horror comics and creators on Kickstarter. He just really cares about lifting up the genre and other creators, and that's the kind of person and attitude we're really, really proud to associate with.
If you're seeing this video without a link directly attached, you can find this project by searching Frost Road on Kickstarter. Thank you so much. Let's get this thing made.
Well, you can check out the link below, baby. That's right. Woo! Yeah, man. All right. So, I mean, that's some fire stuff we're going to be talking about, and these camera angles going to go all the way. All right, here we go. Great. So let's check it out. I mean, look at this cover, man, and it doesn't look. Reminds me of Exorcist, kind of. It gives me this whole sense of dread and something afoul is amiss. So,
Yeah.
you know, talk to us, man. What is Death Follows His Own Path? What is going on here?
So Frost Road takes place in a small town called Frost Road, and this guy awakens from a car accident with no memory of how he got there and what's happened. And as he goes to Frost Road to get help, he finds that the entire town has been wiped out. But somehow, by themselves or by their own hand, they've like torn themselves apart from the inside.
What?
And as gruesome, as graphic as that is, he seems to be immune to whatever's happened. And as he's trying to find survivors, whatever's happened to this town is still happening. And anyone who is still managed to be alive, it seems to be whatever these waves are or whatever's rolling through this town, he can't see it, he can't hear it, but you can almost feel it, but they certainly can. And these survivors are still like just ripping themselves apart. And so he can't leave them to sort of die there in this town. So it becomes sort of what we call like a zombie movie in reverse, because he's actually trying to take these ticking time bombs out of Frost Road. And they're not only a threat to themselves, but to him and anyone around them. So as he starts to find a few other people that seem to be immune the way he is, no one trusts each other because no one knows why they're immune and why other people aren't. And what's happening to them is actually a real condition that's called hyponatremia, where all the salt is somehow erased from their bodies. So what's happening is that they are just completely going mad because something's organically stealing all the salt from their bodies. So the town, Frost Road, is built on salt mines. There's a lot of clues and mysteries that's behind this, and it's a really fun psychological thriller. So it's not a small story. It's about 250 pages, and we started this as a screenplay, and it's just evolved into this amazing graphic novel that we're so proud of, because now it's finished, and now that we're funded, we'll be out by July.
Bro, how much of that music and gaming influence that idea? Because Jesus Christ, bro, it's like what people ain't itching powder and just the things that the guts are trying. Oh, get me out of here, Jesus! What the hell type of brain activity did you have there? Where was your mind at? That's wild.
I had started the story with another friend of mine in the game industry, Brandon Humphreys, and Brandon and I worked on Demolition Man, which is the first time I got to work with Wesley Snipes before we did Exiled. And Brandon and I think we grew up in the same era of this sort of survival horror kind of genre that we loved. And in games, a lot of times you are the character. So like the story is happening to you. So instead of you just following a character going through the story, it's very personal because everything is happening around you and you're discovering and meeting people and other things. So I think Brandon and I always have had that sort of mentality of placing yourself in the middle of a what if scenario. What if the world suddenly went silent and you couldn't understand why this is happening? And that was really inspiration for the story. And if you notice how, even how the story opens up, a guy with amnesia, you are very much in this character, Chris, in Chris's shoes. You don't know where you're at and what's happening in that discovery. Even over the first 10, 15 pages of the book, there's no dialogue. It's just Chris discovering Frost Road and everything that's happening around him. And I really love telling a story that way because it blended perfectly with the visuals that we were doing with Christopher Shy and his style. And that form of storytelling really, I think, immerses you much deeper in the type of worlds that we like to create. And so it's been a really fun journey. And I think a lot of people who see my work in video games are like, oh yeah, this is very much from gamers love this type of kind of story because it's very relatable for people who like that exploration.
I can see why Chris liked this book because the lead character's name is Chris, huh?
That's a joke a running joke we have because for those keeping track at home, we have 4. So we have Christopher Shy, who is the co-creator and artist. We have Chris, who is the main character. We have myself, and then we have a 4th who is an actor who's supporting his likeness, and that's Chris Jai Alex, who is in Extraction and in one of the Call of Duty games. And Transformers, thank you. So
and Call of Duty.
It's Chris to the 4th power in Frost Road. Holy shit! I mean, and it's a great looking book. I mean, this is going to be the overall in a slipcase, hardcover, soft cover. I mean, what are we doing here, Chris? Talk to me.
So for that one, we're doing it kind of like a see-through kind of acrylic, so it's going to look almost frosted in a way. So when you put the book in, it'll have that kind of frosted. I think Keith may have a prototype for us to kind of show you a little bit. There you go.
You can kind of see through the cover. You can see that we want it to be like frosted glass or ice, right? And so when the book's inside, you can see all of the writing through, which is kind of cool.
And that PCB logo, all snap. And man, she's gonna be a fatty. Look at that. If anything,
the book is going to be 250 pages, so it's going to be a beast, and it'll be a hardcover. It won't be a soft cover. It'll be a hardcover book.
Oh, nice. You see that for getting teasers right there. Man, now look at this art, yo, Diablo. Look at this. I dig it. I understand what you mean, but with the Arkham Asylum, I mean, I was a big fan of Tapping the Vein of the Clive Barker books back in the day.
Yep.
I mean, so it had this kind of art style. I always dug it, man. Yeah, bro. Look at this. Oof.
And it's cool because it's a blend between like a photoreal style and this painterly kind of like nightmarish style. So it's definitely recognizable of what's going on, but also it's not as defined as what you would think in a photograph. And it gives it its own kind of unique look and feel and gives a lot of weight. It makes the town of Frost Road its own character. And I think that Christopher Shy's style is just the perfect blend for a movie and a book like this.
So how did you meet that Chris and select him to be the one to grace?
So Christopher Shy and I came together on my very first book, and it was a story called Ascend that we did with Image Comics almost 20 years ago. And that was my first experiment.
20 years ago? I remember that. Holy fuck.
It's almost 20 years. Yeah. And so that book was a really amazing experience because I was working on a game and I was introduced to Jimmy Palmiotti, and Jimmy saw the pages that I was working on and immediately got on the phone with the guys at Image and called them and had me send over the first 4 or 5 pages. And I had a deal with Image the next day. So that book just blew up for us. We were on the cover of previews and we sold out worldwide in like 4 or 5 days. And it's gone on to have 3 sold out printings. And so that book was just an amazing experience because I had no idea what I was doing. It was just like sort of the beginnings of me sort of trying to tell these big, giant narrative stories. And Chris and I just became very, very close friends. We've worked on numerous projects together. And Frost was actually never intended to be a graphic novel. It was supposed to be a motion picture. But Chris's work was so impressive that he was painting a lot of the conceptual work based on Trevor Goring's storyboards that we were doing for the movie. And so Trevor Goring, who had worked on X-Men and Watchmen, was this and is this amazing storyboard artist who just was helping me work through all the shot lists for the movie that was going into production. And Christopher started painting these amazing panels. And just as Hollywood goes and the pandemic goes and other things, we ended up putting the movie on pause for a while, but the book was finished. And so when I came together with Chris and we had a lot of success with The Exiled with Wesley Snipes last year, Chris was like, man, this is ready to go. And so we were introduced to the guys at Kickstarter, and Sam and the team at Kickstarter have been phenomenal to us. And I think that even Kickstarter right now is seeing a huge resurgence and kind of a sort of a reimagining of where they're benefit is to the audience, especially for creators like ourselves, where Diamond and a lot of the other distributors have kind of changed over the years. Now you're seeing creators like us being able to get directly to our audience, and we can support other creators and directly interact with our audience and do shows like this with you and be able to kind of directly connect to the people who want to hear from us and learn from us. And that's kind of what our campaign's been all about.
Excellent. Yeah, man. Talking about Diamond, there more hot water and more hot water. I mean, somebody places a bid and they're like, nah, we sent to somebody else instead. But yeah, but the bid was already dirty business, and only hurts creators, man. Stop it. Let's get back on track and make sure we could help all these amazing creators, you know, get their books out there. Talking about getting books out there, all right? It's this book we're talking about, Frost Road. And folks, look, we're gonna start talking tiers and all that good stuff, all right? And I told you before, you get simply started with $1. You want to be kind to and give Keith the thanks for all those times, hours you spent on Call of Duty, or you know, or reading his movies, his music, anything. Hey, you say, here's the book, all right? But you don't want to just do that. You definitely want to throw all in for the banger, baby. 60 beans, baby. Get this premium acrylic edition, baby. That's the feature one right here. I ships to anywhere in the world. I mean, estimated delivery is for August, right? So that's what you guys are planning, right?
Yep.
We got exclusive, digital exclusive at $20. So what's up with the digital exclusive? Oh, 10 extra pages. Ooh, behind the scenes. Hey, nice.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of things. We wanted to not make it too expensive for the fans, and we also wanted an entry version of the book. What's been great for our early backers is that we are introducing storyboards, hand-numbered pages for them, and excerpts from the motion picture script and other things to give the fans a taste of the behind the scenes and kind of maybe a little peek into what the future might be for future plans for Frost. But at the same time, we also wanted to have other digital rewards for people that are internationally, or people that, you know, didn't want to pay for shipping, but still wanted to appreciate the work and get things, you know, for them to learn from what we're doing, not just for fans, but also other creators. And so as you go through all the different tiers, we started to unlock Q&A sessions and master classes and other opportunities for our audience to interact with us and learn from us. Not to say that, you know, we're the best in the business, but we have, you know, 20, 30 years of history and working in video games and graphic novels and motion pictures and music. There's a lot of overlap in the kind of stories that we tell. And so a lot of our tiers are bringing our audience together to allow them to participate and learn from us, and us to give back a little bit to our community.
Let me ask here, because Yuri Lowenthal, lending his likeness is a huge flex, baby. Diablo. How did that team up come about, and what does he bring to the character?
So Yuri's amazing. We just spent the weekend together in Phoenix at the Game On Expo, and it's such a great world to be able to collaborate and work with friends. And Yuri's career has just absolutely exploded, especially since Spider-Man. Everyone knows him now on the new Spider-Man games, but Yuri has been in the industry as long as I have, and has been in amazing titles dating back to Prince of Persia, and that's where we first met. Oh, yeah, man. And so Yuri is, you know, him and his wife Tara are godparents to our children. We have the same birthday. And so we've always celebrated and done things together. But for the world and collaborating with other creatives, because we wanted this sort of photoreal look to Frost Road, I asked Yuri if he would help pose as an actor, even though he's, you know, a voice actor and a great on-camera actor. He's just an amazing actor all around. But his look is so striking and so notable that I really wanted him to help provide sort of poses and other things, so we could give that to Christopher, so we could sort of explain the action, and as he's painting, we would have a character model that we could use, especially with this sort of photorealistic look. And so that's what we did. And Yuri and I, all over Los Angeles in costume, going through tunnels and the Sepulveda Bridge and other areas, we went around, and Yuri acted out all the scenes, and I had a video camera. We had a small crew with us doing some lighting, and we did stuff here in the studios at PCB, and that we would take that video, find the poses and the pictures, and that would be the reference for Christopher to start his painting. And I think that's why we got such an amazing likeness of Yuri in the book. And that was such an honor for him and for us to be able to work together on another project.
All right, so the next one here, we saw them in that video, Dead Meat, who has a monster following, baby. How did that partnership also come about? And how are you both hyping the book to the horror heads out there?
James and Chelsea at Dead Meat are spectacular. They have such a vibrant community of people that support them. Everything they do with the kill count and what they've done in the community and continue to grow the community has really brought a lot of us together who love horror. And I was introduced to them last year on another project, and we started experimenting with the idea of doing some original work together. They, I think, wanted to get into a narrative space and starting to produce. James and Chelsea, especially Chelsea, are doing a lot of voiceover now and working in video games. And so we had this idea of like, how could we come together and take their audience and our love of storytelling and our love of horror and start to bring that to the audience. And so we've started to create this idea of a series called Blind Terror. And each episode is like an audio drama, almost like an old school radio play, but for like a podcast with actors and sound and music, and bring it almost like a movie to life. And so one of the first ones that we're looking at doing, and especially if we hit our biggest stretch goal of the first part, is doing an audio drama specifically for Frost Road. And so they came on board. They've been very supportive and very helpful. And we're really excited that as we have our stretch goals keep going, and we've got about 60, 70 hours left, that we hit that stretch goal and we can do that audio drama together with Dead Meat.
Come on, let's make it happen, folks. Listen, I know it's anything is possible nowadays. You see how the world is. Anything is possible. Let's get to that goal. I know they want 40 for that. We're at 22. That's nothing. Another 18. Come on, let's make it happen in 64 hours. Anything is possible, folks. That would be pretty fire. And I love me a campaign that does so many different tiers and many different things. You got even on the retail level. Those are some dope books, though. I mean, for $60 for with 200 pages hardcover. The slip, everything, hell yeah, yo. I think that's a way more than fair price. Fuck, bro. I can't wait to see what this book looks like. And then look at this. Industry insider experience, like you're saying, private studios. I mean, listen, it just don't stop. It just keep bringing different tiers here. So let's make it happen. A whole bunch of different levels, folks. Support. I really love these two images, though. For real. This is freaky as fuck. It reminds me of a Night of the Living Dead type of feel.
Right, exactly. And Chris, don't we have a lot of backers that have been following the campaign, and our conversion rate is starting to go up right now? Which is great.
we're starting to kind of hit that 48-hour mark where it gets, or the closing, as they say, of it, because it's usually fun either in the very beginning or at the very end, and starting to get that groundswell because we've gotten like 20 pledges now, and it's kind of just shot up overnight. So it's been wonderful to see, and we're just excited to hopefully see that the waiting game, and just see who can come in, because it's so interesting to see how people react, because they're like, oh, is this thing gonna fund? Who are these people? Because that's been kind of the fun testing phase of this whole thing, is like, how do you introduce a brand new IP? How do you introduce a brand new kind of creative mind, a hive mind, so to speak? Because even though Keith has been here and for decades now with his work and music, things like that, like people may not remember or not know Ascend. So we're kind of reintroducing Keith and Christopher in this new way. And so that's just been like hey, this is a brand new book. Like, we have it completely done. Like, we're trying to basically do everything we can to reassure backers, like, hey, we get it. It's a big ask, but we're also going to give back to you as much as we possibly can, because we're trying to be as mindful of tariffs and shipping. Because like, we know if there's people in Australia or Italy or things like that, like, shipping can be tough. And so one of the things we thought of was, for anyone who's an international backer, Keith and Christopher will sign your books for free. So they get like a $40 value automatically there, because we can't control tariffs. We can't control the shipping price. But what we can do is make the pledge that more of an investment, and just be as honest as we can be. And that's kind of been the mindset me and Keith agreed upon, is just like, hey, how can we give as much as we can without, breaking the bank, so to speak? But like, how do we just give back and kind of what is the phrase, under promise, over deliver, as much as we possibly can? And that's kind of the mindset we have.
So I think you guys are going to have to start filling up suitcases with books and just might as well deliver the books yourselves to the fans internationally. That would be cheaper than having
Right.
right?
Well, we do have a tier where you could come and visit us at San Diego. So if you're at San Diego Comic-Con and you have access to it, again, we're not providing travel or admission, but if you're coming to San Diego and you have a pass and you want to come meet, like we'll have like a full-on meet and greet with some of our select talent and cast who can be there, and like we're happy to sign, or Keith's happy to sign and do things, and we're bringing books with us that are people who want to pick it up there. So by all means, we're finding all the options to make it happen.
Great.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and kind of just like what Chris is saying is that we really want to give back to the community and also kind of establish that we're going to be here growing with everybody. And even though we've been doing our work behind the scenes for many years, now us having this relationship with Kickstarter, Chris and I starting to formulate a plan of how we're going to continue to roll out a lot of our work. I think what you're going to start to see is throughout the year, instead of these long drawn out campaigns, we're going to do pretty short campaigns where we're going to be putting things out to market pretty quickly. And so we're going to be announcing our next campaign at San Diego this year. And so I think they'll see the quality of the work that we have done, obviously in Frost, and being, having so much love into this project and so much behind it that they'll get to see it realized right away. And then right behind that, our next campaign will get announced. And so we're going to be announcing that at San Diego Comic-Con. So hopefully fans will start to rely on us being very dependable and knowing the quality that we do and all the extra bells and whistles. And like Chris said, under promise and over deliver. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people because they're going to get a lot of surprises along the way.
Well, I'm looking forward. I'm going to be at San Diego this year, so the king of intros will be in the house. So let's go, boys. Let's get it done. I'll give it a whip out. And besides that, I mean, I also said I want to talk a little bit about this because you said you guys are doing a little bit of everything. Man, people may be unaware. So again, the website is right there, pcb.cc. No, not Comic Crusaders, right?
Right, that's right.
So let them know about everything that PCB is all about, especially things maybe they're not aware of.
And we also have another site. So pcb.cc is going to be a little sneak peek into all our original projects that we're going to be developing and releasing and some of the other ones that we've put out. And all our other site is PCB Productions.com. And that is a little bit more of an overview of our video game work and all the services we've done for Like a Dragon and for Call of Duty and for Persona and for Street Fighter and games like that. So for people who like video games and know our work, the PCB Productions site kind of shows our studios and a little of our history there. And now PCB.cc and our PCB Entertainment brand is going to be where fans will be able to find all of our stuff on Kickstarter and all of our direct projects that are going right out to the fans.
I'm excited, man. Now with these upcoming projects you have coming up, I mean, is it an expanded family, new team members in the PCB family? What's going on there? Anything you could tell us, give us a little preview, gossip about?
Sneak peeks.
Well, we can definitely say it's going to be wild because how Frost Road is a very contained graphic novel, and we're trying to expand it into audio dramas as we saw with Dead Meat. I think this next one's going to be very interesting because it's going to be more experience based, definitely more in person. There will be aspects that could be a book of sorts or more of a physical item. But the one thing about this next one that we can tease is it's just going to be this kind of wild carnival of just like fun. I don't want to say debauchery, but just kind of fun, sinister, if that's such a thing to say. That kind of dark creepiness, but in a good way. The Tim Burton, if you will.
Okay.
It's going to be this thing where we could potentially be taking it from San Diego Comic-Con all the way up to, so that's July, all the way up to maybe November. I mean, we'll have our campaign and we'll have our traditional thing, but how we go about promoting it, it might be a full-on like seasonal activity. And that's the fun part because we're actually planning it right now. We have a meeting tomorrow and then we're just kind of getting all those bells and whistles ready. So we can then, because Crossroads our first one and we're learning, all the time, hey, what works, what doesn't. And we're just going to, take that, carry it over and just kind of fine tune the next one. And then, but also that's going to be its whole new thing in itself. So again, to kind of circle back and give you a tease, the first half of San Diego Comic-Con will be celebrating, like, you know, kind of the ending of Frost Road in terms of its Kickstarter campaign. And then the books will be going out to fans. But then on Saturday and Sunday, we are going to be flipping the booth at PCB. And then we'll be being dressed as the new IP. So that's the best thing. So if you come by the booth in the beginning of the week, it'll be Crossroad. And so come by, check it out, you know, look at the book for yourself. And then on Saturday, come back to the booth and see this whole new thing we got planned, because it's a bit of a hoot. I mean, I don't want to even give too much away. So
I'm looking forward to that shit. I'm going to be having my camera snapping shots, kiddo. What?
As you should, because depending on how we have things set up, there could be a lot of moments that could be captured for video for sure.
Yeah, we'll be at booth. So it's booth 4039, and we're the only creator, I think, in the entire studio section. So if you go in the main entrance and Hall E at San Diego Comic-Con and come to the second main aisle, you're going to find a very interesting change for what we're doing. And a lot of people also know us because coming from the video game space, we've worked in things called ARGs, which are alternate reality games. So instead of just a video game that you would play on a console or mobile or your PC, these are real world games that are almost like scavenger hunts with immersive sort of campaigns that are almost like a scavenger hunt kind of idea, where you're actually getting to experience acting and immersive theater and other kinds of elements. So like Chris was alluding to with like the new books that will be out, there'll be definitely an immersive tour that will come up with this one. And I think fans will be very excited, because the horror genre, I think, of any of the kind of different genres that are out there, the horror market is really growing, and we have such a great fan base and great experience there. So definitely, if you're going to go to any of the horror conventions or anything over the next year, I think you're going to find what we're doing very exciting.
Ooh, I can't wait. Yeah, horror is it, because we're all sick out here, right? Let's go. Horror is everything. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, you keep bringing it. PCB Entertainment is in the house, baby. It's going to be the year PCB. I'm looking forward to it. And now I'm really looking forward to SD, because I really want to see. I don't think no booth has ever done that, where they just flip from one thing to another. So now you guys got me thinking, I mean, this is the party out here. Let's get it done. I'm digging it. All right, so any last words? I'll go with Keith. I mean, in your journey, you've done just about everything. You know, king of multimedia for real. What type of advice would you give to them kids out there trying to step into the game nowadays?
I think now of any time is such an amazing time to get into this. The Hollywood and the industry has kind of been turned on its end. We've seen changes between COVID and strikes and other things in our industry. And I think what that's doing is opening up a whole new generation of opportunity for people to step in and introduce their ideas. You see things like Kickstarter and other platforms that are coming out now that are allowing us to get directly to our audiences. And so I see people scared about AI and other things. I think AI is actually becoming this amazing tool for certain creators. Other creators are going the other way and creating things completely off the charts that have nothing to do with where technology is at. And I think it's such a great time because the audience is ready for that and they're embracing both. So we're encouraging a lot of our friends to use this time that seems very sort of rocky and tumultuous to kind of actually go forward and start creating. And we're supporting other creators. And you look at our campaign and we're giving back to a lot of other creators, and we're collaborating now with a lot of new people. So I think it's a good time, and you're going to see a lot of new projects on the horizon, not just from us, but from a lot of new creators that are going to have new voices that haven't been heard before.
Yeah, 100. Use those tools. I remember when the internet started, it was the worst thing that could happen. It's going to do this, it's going to do that. No, it actually changed the world. And, you know, some, you could say for the positive, you could say for the negative, and to each their own, but it definitely did impact the world. And I don't think people know how to not live without it, right?
Right. Yeah, as long as it doesn't replace anybody, right? You know, what can be done by a human needs to be done by a human. And what can be done by a tool should be done with a tool, as long as the tool never replaces a human. So as long as we kind of live by that sort of Isaac Asimov kind of rule, then the idea is that, you know, we'll always have work, and we're going to have these amazing tools to create the visions that are stuck in our heads that we can finally bring out to our audiences.
Yeah, Tom Billieu showed something on his show where it's a robot that was actually the camera guy. So the robot was the camera guy and then they did this whole video, and it was just done by that one robot. So somebody says, well, the robot's just a camera guy. He's still in the cinematographer. So they're thinking, okay, so you're telling me one human surrounded by 30 robots? Is that what's gonna happen? That's crazy shit, man. The world is in fact changing, but let's see where it goes. You still can't replace this, baby. You know, and the soul right here, baby. That cannot be replaced. Right, that crazy. What about you, Chris? Because man, look at you. You came in. You said we could possibly do this with that. And then Frostworld is out there kicking ass, so right funded. I mean, yeah, baby, you know, show you know what Yates, my man, he could do. What type of advice you give to people out there, you know, also trying to step into the Kickstarter game based on the lessons you've been learning?
Oh, absolutely. Patience is definitely one. I mean, you there's going to be no perfect time, and I think you just have to be as patient as you can. It's going to be a marathon, and then once it gets done, it'll be another marathon. It's always going to be kind of this never-ending cycle in terms of just always something to do. So pace yourself, take your time, be patient, and I'm saying this out loud to remind myself as well. But one of those things is like Ryan Holiday has a book called Perennial Bestseller, and it's like understanding that you're doing it for the right reasons, and then you're just always going to be going to that next level of like, hey, do the work, make sure that you treat people with respect, know that, you know, some things may work and some things may not. But at the end of the day, as long as you say you know, had a good days of work, you know, you put in a hard hat on the table, so to speak, and you just know that it's going to happen and just put the work in, you'll be good. So I'll keep it very short and simple and just say, you know, patience, understanding, and then, you know, just be you. Kickstarter is a place where you get to do anything you want as long as you're being respectful to, you know, others around you, and give it a shot. I mean,
be a good person.
Yeah. So,
yeah. You know what? Best advice ever. Sounds so simple, but it's so difficult for so many. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, whatever. To each their own, folks. Again, just show some love. Be respectful, like you said. Be mindful. You know, be supportive. Support indie, baby. This amazing project that's live now. You only got 64 hours, folks. All right. That's the link right there. It's also in the show notes, so click away. Right, you can follow my big homie Keith everywhere on Instagram at Keith_Arem, and then Meta Keith.Arem, and of course my man Chris. It's CYG47. It's about everywhere on social. That's right. All right. So show love, support indie, support these folks. Thank you for tuning in, my Crusaders. I see y'all watching, being all quiet, lurkers. Y'all to talk. Ask questions. We have amazing people here. You could definitely pick their brains. Yeah, that's what they're here for, man. All right, showing that love. So again, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you, my Crusaders. Much love. It is Omega, and I'm out. Hasta la próxima, baby. Wepa!
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusadersworld and our extended podcast family over at comiccrusadersworld. And also make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Play Store today.